Good morning, everybody. I'm Charting Man Dan of the Chart Guys. In this live stream, we're going to give an example of what we do every day. As far as part of our routines, we're going to go through pre-market setup, looking at the major indices and major sectors and commodities. Then we're going to look at the open and give analysis of what we're observing. I'm definitely being very patient in this current market environment, but we'll see if any trades present themselves. And then going to be taking some ticker requests around 10 a.m. from Chart Guys members. But glad you're along for the ride. Let's get into our start. So this is my fidelity screen of where I look at all of the setups, or I should say all of the major names that I'm keeping an eye on, major sectors. And we can see that we're opening lower this morning. We've got the financial sector gapping down. And the financial sector is seeing this weakness because FRC, which is one of our smaller regional banks that was definitely a major player caught up in the whole banking fiasco. They had earnings yesterday after hours, and they are down significantly. We're down about 25% from where we closed yesterday. Is weighing on the financial sector, and the financial sector is at risk of losing the daily uptrend. So for me, XLF set the daily higher low yesterday at 33.03. We got the bounce underway, and now with this gap down open, we are confirming a little downtrend and shaping up for weekly consolidation to potentially be taking shape. We know that we are looking for a weekly lower high to be the most likely result of this bounce in the financial sector. We're testing weekly EMA 12 resistance, and so we're now looking down at 32.72 support. If that level breaks, we are officially seeing that weekly consolidation underway. But notable weakness pre-market in XLF, and we're going to keep an eye on that 32.72 level, which was a little hourly double bottom on the way up. So we know we've got an initial small amount of weakness in XLF. The key for me on the open is going to be, do we see the NASDAQ break the low of yesterday? Because if the NASDAQ breaks the low of yesterday as well, hourly downtrend continues, then that's going to be two of our major sectors hitting fresh lows. And that, for me, is going to be very notable as far as bears following through a bit. We're also going to be looking at QQQ. We know this sideways range that we've been in what feels like forever. 312.57 is the most important level. And so if we break that low of yesterday, we're going to be approaching 312.57, which is the lowest level that we've seen in the last almost month of trading, about 3 weeks and a couple days. So if that were to break, that would be notable. We know we've got tech earnings starting today with Microsoft and Google after hours, and that's going to have an impact as well, but also watching to see whether we hold support or break it before the earnings reactions get going. And there is one setup I'm watching on the NASDAQ futures chart, and there is a falling wedge type of pattern. So I'm watching this downtrending support line here. And so if we were to bear break with zero follow through, then I'd be keeping an eye on this pattern remaining relevant. But how this pattern breaks is potentially going to be dictated by Microsoft and Google's earnings reaction. So I'll be keeping an eye on this pattern as long as trend lines continue to be respected as they have been over the last week. As far as the S&P 500 is concerned, we're looking at the futures chart, and we can see that, again, we set this little daily higher low yesterday, and we're very close to rolling over into weekly consolidation. We have a higher low every single week for 5 weeks in a row, and we're on the verge of that breaking. We look at SPY. SPY would need to break 410.17, and here we are pre-market trading at 410.78. So 410.17 certainly in play. If that breaks, weekly consolidation is officially underway, and we will be at risk of losing daily EMA 12 support for the first time in almost a month. So that would definitely be notable as well. So bears grinding the past few days and trying to continue following through with that grind down to see the break of support. So heading into pre-market, for me, the burden is on bulls to prove to me that we can hold these support levels. And again, the big one for me is QQQ first thing. All about write that level down, 313.74. If that level breaks, it's definitely a nice short-term win for the bears. We'll have the hourly downtrend to continue to be our guide. And if that level holds, it'll be all about 316.16 resistance, which was from the bounce at the end of yesterday. So that's the setup for some of the major indices. The dollar is trying to set up the daily high or low. The key for the rest of the week in the dollar is, can the bulls confirm the inverse head and shoulders, which would be the first daily uptrend confirming in over 5 weeks. So at this point, if we're going to set a daily high or low compared to 178, we need to see a 4-hour trend change. It's a nice 4-hour bounce, but anything under 101.91 is just a lower high. And again, the dollar, just imagine the dollar inverse to metals and miners and crypto and stocks. It's not tick for tick inverse, but generally it is inverse. And so if we see the dollar bulls start to show strength, that's going to increase probabilities for weekly consolidation in the markets. We've already seen weekly consolidation start in oil, gold, Bitcoin, and the only place it hasn't started really is SPY. And so we're watching for that to potentially be in play to get started today. But the dollar has to confirm a 4-hour uptrend whenever we top out on this bounce if a convincing daily high or low is going to be set to give the bulls the possibility of shaping up a daily uptrend. And again, there's the only 2 scenarios for the dollar from here in the next week or so is we either hold this double bottom at the 5-month low of consolidation and confirm a daily uptrend to get a weekly bounce underway, or we break that double bottom of support and see 5-month lows. Those are 2 very different scenarios, a double bottom into a trend change bounce versus fresh 5-month lows. How we shape up the dollar from here is going to have significant short-term implications, in my opinion. So I'm caring a lot more about the dollar over the last week or so than I was in the prior, week of trading. Gold is still consolidating on the weekly, and it looks like we're just waiting to see what the dollar is going to do. If the dollar breaks bear, then gold is a potential weekly bull flag, and so is silver, and so are the miners. And if the dollar holds the double bottom and breaks or confirms the daily uptrend, then we're going to be looking for the metals and miners to see further weekly consolidation. I am interested in looking long on these metals for a weekly high or low, but I'm not looking to be overly aggressive here and rushing in. I'm waiting to see how the dollar shapes up a bit, and I would be more comfortable looking around the weekly EMA 12 for a potential entry, or maybe even below it, but not quite yet in terms of making an entry. And I also did increase my exposure to the metals on the way up a bit. That's another reason I'm remaining a little bit patient. There's a line on gold for us to be watching as well. Similar to the NASDAQ, the bear breaks are lacking follow through, and we do have a downtrend resistance line to be keeping an eye on. So just a constricting range. And again, whenever I draw these trend lines, very rarely am I making trades based off the trend lines. Sometimes I will, but it's usually, price levels that I'm making trades based off of. And these are just visual guides for me to let me know ranges are constricting, to let me know it's a potential falling wedge. And again, just more of a visual guide than a trading instrument. Instrument's the wrong word, but trading something. Trading indicator, you get the idea. Visual guide. So we have silver with a notable drop today, but also now a notable bounce hourly. You can see the lack of liquidity comparative to gold, just in the sense that there's a lot more volatility in silver compared to gold. So daily lower low just hit, confirming the daily downtrend, confirming this little head and shoulders we've been keeping an eye on. So the weekly consolidation very clearly underway for silver. Again, there are no red flags whatsoever on this consolidation. And so we're watching weekly EMA 12, and we're watching the retracement size on this weekly consolidation as we wait for the dollar to give us some clarity in the short term. The miners, daily inside bar yesterday, but we're going to be testing near the low. It's a tightening range. I like the GDX hourly chart. So if we hold the low of yesterday, the hourly range will continue to tighten. 33.89 clear resistance. And again, weekly consolidation is underway for the miners, and we are looking for a weekly higher low and watching the EMA 12 support. Oil, CLM 2023 is a potential daily bear flag. So bears want to see a loss of the 4-hour higher lows. We confirmed the 4-hour uptrend yesterday. Right now we can say there's a lack of follow through, so that keeps the daily bear flag on the table. We have not confirmed a daily downtrend yet, and if we do, we're going to look to the gap fill of 75.83, and then that will indicate that there is no weekly higher low being set just yet. We're anticipating that for oil, a weekly higher low is definitely the most likely scenario due to the month-long bounce that we saw, but again, patiently waiting for weekly higher lows in metals and oil and crypto as well. We'll get there in just a moment. Natural gas. So for natural gas, this is a must hold level for me. And I'm looking at Nat Gas USD. If you're looking at, let's go to the futures, NG futures, we are looking at daily support must hold level of 214. If 214 breaks from here, it is a red flag because that must be the daily high or low, and we must break 239 to confirm the daily uptrend. If that happens, that's the first daily uptrend in 5 months. Again, we want to identify charts where we can look at something and say, this has not happened in a significant period of time, and then we make note when it happens for the first time, because that tells us the character of the chart is changing. That tells us trends are reversing. So if I can make a statement, natural gas has not confirmed a daily uptrend in 5 months, and then it does, we know that that is a notable event taking place. So bulls are attempting to shape it up, but they've got work to do. Must hold this support and break 239. Otherwise, bears remain very comfortable and bulls fail yet again to prove anything in terms of any kind of meaningful reversal. And so I am going to be keeping an eye on Boyle. Let's see if Boyle has a potential bottom fishing play. Well, Boyle's holding up fairly well. The must hold level for Boyle, keeping in mind, some wiggle room of some pennies because it's possible that this ETF has time decay that, leads to a break of support when the underlying does not. But 326 is the key support level for Boyle. So Bitcoin, pretty much nothing changing overnight, just sideways here over the last 24 hours and grinding near the lows. Bulls are not proving anything at this point, and we've got to get over 28,000 for the bulls to prove something. Otherwise, the bears are going to remain comfortable. So we're looking down at 26.9 as the low of consolidation. And while Bitcoin traded sideways overnight, a lot of these altcoins did drop to lower lows. So still a bit weak in the crypto space overall. As I've mentioned recently, I am keeping an eye out for some of these crypto miners, these stocks to get bounces going. MARA being one of them, showed a little bit of relative strength yesterday comparative to Riot, but over the last 5 days, we've dropped 32%, and I'm looking for a daily bounce, and then I'm looking for a daily lower high. And so first thing, I'm going to be watching the low of yesterday test. The bulls have to either hold 869 or break it with zero follow through. And yesterday morning, we broke the low of Friday straight into a meaningful bounce. So I'm watching for signs of bear exhaustion, of either the inability to break 869 and then a bull break of 909, or a break of 869 with zero follow through straight into a new high of the day. That would be notable to me as well. But again, just watching this key support test first thing, and that's pretty much how I'm approaching the morning with the names that I'm watching. And as I've been mentioning, while we're in these sideways daily ranges where the NASDAQ and S&P 500 have way less volatility than they've had the last 3 years, for me, that means focus on volatile individual names to find the day trading opportunity that I seek on a daily basis. And so these crypto names are some of them that I have been trading. Tesla, we'll look at Tesla in a bit, and NVDA are some of the larger cap names that still have good volatility. But MARA and Riot are a top watch for me this morning to see if they can hold the low of yesterday. And then AI, which is another very volatile AI-related name. Same thing. Can we hold the low of yesterday of 1746? We're opening a good bit above it, but in the first 15 minutes of trading, we can move 3-4% very easily in this name. So you got to be aware of that. But I'm going to be scouting AI for a daily lower high next bounce. But again, keeping an eye out for bulls to try and shape up that daily bounce. Essentially, we're reaching a point on some of these more volatile names where we've dropped so much over the last 3 to 5 days that if I'm going to be comfortable looking bearish, I do want to see some short-term bounces cool off RSI levels and set daily lower highs for me to be comfortable looking bearish again. Other names that I'm keeping an eye on ARKK, and I have a bear interest in ARKK because of the relative weakness we've been seeing with the Tesla earnings bearish reaction, and we also saw multiple weekly inside bars break bearish. And it's all about 3481 bigger picture, because if that level holds, ARKK is just a weekly equilibrium. So 3481 is a very important support, and we are still well above that level. But I just like how the bears are positioned well in ARKK if the NASDAQ rolls over and breaks that daily support that we were just looking at, 312.57. So ARKK bears, we're watching the hourly downtrend. Resistance is the bounce high from the end of yesterday. And that level was 37.24. And bears want to see a break of 36.58 to keep the downtrend and see some follow through. But Tesla's going to be a big part of that, so keeping an eye on Tesla as well. So we know Tesla bears have had full control since earnings. Daily stair step, just meaning a lower high every day. And you could see the bears defend resistance yesterday, and they did a really good job of it. First thing in the morning, we saw a bit of a bounce, and we rejected from the high of Friday by 35 cents. So a really nice top fish, and then we just absolutely rolled over into a very big drop. So bears being rewarded for that short at resistance. And so the big question is, again, the same thing. Same thing as AI, same thing as the crypto stocks. Can Tesla bulls hold 158.61 first thing this morning to try and set an hourly higher low and then break? We would have to break 163.22 if we were going to confirm an hourly uptrend and start to shape up a daily bounce. The simple statement is, if we can't break 163.22, the bulls aren't going anywhere. It's just a clear hourly downtrend. So there is a support test first thing at 158.61. And again, aggressive bulls are watching closely for a potential bottom fish off that support level, but it would be required that QQQ fails to break. QQQ pretty much needs to hold the low of yesterday if we're going to see Tesla bulls able to try and reverse their momentum. So we would need to see QQQ shape up the hourly trend change if Tesla is going to be able to do the same thing. Must hold the low of yesterday and break the high of the hourly bounce to shift that momentum clearly. So burden is on bulls in a lot of places because we have these clear hourly downtrends. NVDA. So NVDA had some nice bear action yesterday, but it did shift into relative strength. So it started the morning with relative weakness, and then right around the low of Friday, we did see some relative strength. And it's the same kind of sideways range here where if the bears want to follow through, we've got to break 262.20 into clear weekly consolidation. And the semiconductors themselves, looking at the ETF here, SMH, clearly weaker, grinding down. And it's another sector that's positioned well for bears if the NASDAQ breaks its daily support. But we can clearly see that NVDA is stronger than SMH as it is trading sideways and just came off a fresh high, whereas SMH has not gotten close to its high over the last 3 weeks of trading. So there is definitely weakness in the semiconductors comparative to a lot of other sectors recently. It's just a question of, do we see bear follow through if the market starts its bigger picture weekly consolidation? Keeping an eye on healthcare. Healthcare was a big reason that we did not see fear continue to develop yesterday. Yesterday, solid and in the financial sector first thing in the morning, but healthcare was up at the high of the day and offsetting some of that weakness as far as the S&P 500 is confirmed. So XLV, I'm keeping an eye on to see, do the bulls continue to maintain their control or do we shift at all? Because as we know, if we're going to see fear, if we're going to see a clear pullback in the broader market, then we want to see all of our major sectors drop at the same time, which is QQQ, XLF, XLV. And for me, anytime one of those major sectors is up at the high and hitting new highs while one of the other major sectors is at the lows, that for me is almost like a small safety net saying, okay, well, SPY is not going to get too ugly if one of these sectors is continuing to head up. So that's something that I'm definitely watching for the bears to start to, inflict a little bit of fear in this market. We've got to see XLF, XLV, QQQ all dropping together to show us money leaving the market versus just healthy rotation. And rotation has been the name of the game for the bulls over the last month of trading while we've made this move up. And so watching to see if that shifts at all, and it hasn't in a while. So I will be keeping an eye on the healthcare sector. I rarely trade it. I do have a JNJ long from the recent lows, but it's more of an observation and clue giver for me as far as watching the entire market. So let's now look at some of the individual big tech names. We got 10 minutes into the open here. And again, we've got a good mix of relative strength and weakness, where we've got Apple still in a very clear daily uptrend, trying to set a higher low, holding EMA 12. And we can see pre-market, Apple is needing to break. If Apple breaks 165.60, the high of yesterday, that's an hourly uptrend confirming and setting that daily higher low. We know Apple does not have earnings this week, but it is going to be impacted by the other peers' earnings reactions. But it's a clear daily uptrend. And then you look at a name like Google, and Google is a bit weaker, trying to recover. Google's earnings are going to be after hours, and that's going to dictate, essentially for Google and Microsoft, both of them have started weekly consolidation. And if it's a bearish reaction to earnings, we're going to get weekly consolidation follow through. And if it's a bullish reaction to earnings, it's a potential weekly bull flag. And we can see Microsoft is very similar. Weekly consolidation has started. If it's a bull reaction, it's a bull flag. And if it's a bear reaction, we're going to get further retracement. So for me, earnings are always a coin flip. And, I am going to be holding some long Microsoft that I have in my IRA from the fear lows, holding that through earnings. But I am hedged at this point with some bearish exposure, just knowing that there's going to be a whole lot of after hours activities on these earnings reactions and just wanting to be protected a bit in case we do have bearish reactions. So those two names, weekly consolidation underway. Apple has not started weekly consolidation. We know Amazon has been bull over the past week or so, but yesterday's candle looking a little bit like a potential climax top, and we can see this relative weakness. So here's Amazon testing the low of yesterday first thing, watching to see if the relative strength from last week into first thing yesterday now shifts into relative weakness. It would be an hourly bear flag confirming if 105.07 were to break, and then daily consolidation would be underway. Earnings for Amazon are on Thursday, so watching to see, is that our temporary peak pre-earnings after Amazon bulls just saw pretty much an 11% move in about a week and a half of trading. So potential little climax top on Amazon. And so aggressive bears are watching for that break of 105.07. If that breaks, daily consolidation underway, and we would then be looking at 103.21, the low of Thursday, as the next support level. And if you are a bear and want to see the NASDAQ break support, you want to see as many of your names showing weakness as possible. Meta has been seeing some weekly consolidation just get underway as well. So again, same thing. We're watching for a weekly higher low to be the result of this pullback, but earnings are going to dictate whether it's a quick little bull flag or more significant retracement. Pre-market on Meta, we are above low of yesterday, above the low of Friday, so we can see there's a little bit of relative strength compared to a name that's testing its low of yesterday first thing. So tightening hourly range, I'm pretty much just viewing Meta as the low of Friday, high of Monday, higher low, lower high, and just a tightening hourly range. Checking back in on our major sectors here. QQQ not doing a whole lot. Still the gap down on the financial sector. AI did have news that is leading to that little bump up in pre-market here, so that increases the probability AI can hold 46. And again, still seeing the crypto names going to test their lows of yesterday first thing. Netflix already had earnings, and we're watching Netflix for a daily lower high. So Netflix, I'm looking at anything under 346.43 as a daily lower high. It's been a nice bounce the last few days, but a loss of the hourly uptrend will be the first indication that our daily lower high is being set. And we had a nice big pop yesterday and then a big pullback, and that big pullback has created space for an hourly lower high. So an aggressive bear is going to be scouting an hourly lower high on Netflix, anything under 334.66. And if we were to see weakness in the NASDAQ, if the NASDAQ heads down and breaks the low of yesterday, then we're going to be looking for Netflix to set an hourly lower high. But they've got to break 326.75 to confirm the hourly downtrend, which would confirm the daily lower high being set. So keeping an eye out for that daily lower high on Netflix, and also making note that Netflix will see less reaction to earnings because it already had its earnings. Names that have not had earnings react more to peers and their earnings than the names that already have had earnings for obvious reasons. So looking at back one more time at the futures charts for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, ideal start for the bears is reject from hourly EMA 12, which we've been doing the last few hours, and roll over and break the low of pre-market. And that setup is on the table, but the bears do need to control the open, and that's the case for both the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. And if the NASDAQ holds the low of yesterday, we know the S&P 500 bears aren't going to get very far. So again, that's why that level, low of yesterday on QQQ, is going to be key for me here first thing. And I'm also going to be watching for the possibility of a bear break with no follow through. If we were to see that, that would mean the NASDAQ is continuing to bounce off our futures 4-hour downtrending support line that I just showed you. So if we drop down to the low of yesterday, and even if we break it with zero follow through, that would be a bounce off that downtrending support. So the one thing that I am just looking for on a daily basis is bears show me all major sectors weak and dropping at the same time and keep control all day. Because that's another thing that we have not been seeing. We've seen, some nice drops. Yesterday, the NASDAQ had a big drop, but after that drop was over, that was it. And it was just a bounce for 4 hours from that point forward. And so I want to see if the bears are going to be convincing all major sectors at the lows together. And I want to see 5-minute downtrends on the morning, changing into 15-minute downtrends later in the late morning, midday, changing into hourly downtrends in the afternoon and closing, near the low of the day. We have not seen many closes near the low. All these drops have these lower wicks showing bounces. And so it'll be notable to me when we start seeing closes near the lows. A little bit of bear lean after yesterday's action, but if NASDAQ does not break the low of yesterday, we'll definitely be looking quickly for some bounces on potentially these crypto names. I'm going to log into my account real quick, make sure we're ready to go. Because generally my trading is better after the first hour of trading when we have price ranges to be going off of from the morning's action. But if I am going to be trading first thing in the first 15 minutes, it's generally going to be a top fishing play or a bottom fishing play where there's a level right nearby that we're going to test first thing. And that is then the stop level that I can go off of. And so that's potentially the case here this morning if we were to see bulls defend the lows of yesterday. Just a heads up, we've got Lori going live on Thursday with a webinar, Thursday 5 p.m. Eastern. And she's going to be talking about finding your edge in the markets. I'm posting the link into the chat right now. You've got to sign up for it. And even if you can't make it Thursday after hours, then we will send you a recording link. So that is in the comments, and I'll also post that in the description of this video once it's done and recorded. All right, test of QQQ first thing. XLF 3272 is important. That's not in play right away. And XLV was the lead bull sector yesterday. We'll see if they can keep that up again today. Do I use smaller positions for the first 15 minutes? It depends on what I'm trading more than, the time of the day. I use shorter term time frames. On the morning, I'm watching the 2-minute, and then it changes into the 5-minute, and then in the 15-minute as we get more and more data on the morning. But as far as, my position size, generally the most important factor is going to be the volatility of the instrument that I'm trading. So I'm going to use a smaller position size on Riot, which has a lot more volatility than, say, NVDA. And I would say, if I'm trading NVDA, generally it's more than twice the size of Riot as my standard position size. And here comes the open. So QQQ bulls, if we break the high of pre-market here, that would be a notable defense of the low of yesterday. But we're heading down to try and test it first thing. We can see again, XLV is clearly our lead bull sector on the morning. It's up 0.5%, while QQQ and XLF are both down 0.5%. We'll see if that continues to remain the case through the morning. And right now we've got Tesla, Riot, and MARA. They're all holding their low of yesterday initially, but we don't have any confidence in QQQ bulls at the moment. So remaining patient. I'm going to be watching Coin for a daily lower high next bounce. That's a lead bear in the crypto space. But I want to see a couple days of bounce before I look bearish there. QQQ trying to get back to the high of the day. And again, a break of 315 would be notable for me on QQQ as far as successful initial defense of low of yesterday's support. MARA is quickly right back at the high of the day. So MARA bulls held low of yesterday's support right out of the gate. Held it by 2 pennies. So aggressive bulls looking for that bottom fish. And these crypto names positioned well if QQQ gets over 315 and see some bounce follow through. So QQQ just held the low of yesterday initially. It's all about trends as well. We need to see trends develop. We need 5-minute uptrends. If we're going to see control maintained through the morning. XLV, I've got to update got to reboot Fidelity real quick. It's giving me the levels from yesterday. We'll watch Riot in the meantime. Some background turkey noise. So Riot bulls need to get over 1043 for a new high of the day, and then zooming out to yesterday's levels, we have to see the bulls set up an hourly trend change in their favor. We've got resistance from the end of yesterday. That was up at 1049, so that's a key resistance level to be watching first thing. We can see QQQ is pulling back just under the high of pre-market first thing. Bears really want to see a new low of the day for a convincing rejection. And so now essentially the thing that I'm watching for is QQQ going to hit a new high of the day or a new low of the day. NVDA is showing relative strength this morning, not anywhere near its low of yesterday. Apple is also trying to show some relative strength in the green. NVDA's high of yesterday, 273.66, is not far away, but QQQ would have to get over 315 for that to come into play. SPY is pretty much a double bottom right with the low of yesterday. So we got a little short-term battle here. Remaining patient. Tesla low of the day test again. So that low of yesterday still hanging around down at 158.61, only $1 away. So Tesla is standing out as a lead bear again. Microsoft is showing some notable weakness. Amazon broke the low of yesterday to confirm that hourly bear flag. New low of the day on QQQ. So that low of yesterday is still hanging around. Netflix gave us very quickly that hourly downtrend confirming into daily consolidation. So daily lower high is now set on Netflix. So Netflix and Amazon bears so far, first thing, are positioned well if QQQ can break that low of yesterday. Bulls are definitely going to do everything they can to defend it. But that is the battle going on here first thing this morning. So Tesla, QQQ, key low of yesterday support test. Meta is down a good bit on the morning as well. So if I'm a bear right now, again, obviously I want to see QQQ break support, but Apple is doing its best to stand up as the big tech bull. And so I want to see Apple roll over into a new low of the day and join Team Bear, because right now it's doing its best to offset. It's not doing a great job, but it is the only individual name right now on my screen out of big tech. I guess Google is as well. Google's at the high of the day. They're trying to hold up against the weakness of Amazon and Meta and Microsoft. Here's QQQ attempting to hold the low again. Got to get over 315 for it to be convincing. AI is giving back most of that little morning pop. Still holding the low of yesterday, but heading back down. ARKK low of yesterday is starting to come into play. 36.58, it just held by 4 cents. So a lot of names testing their low of yesterday here first thing. MARA is still holding the low of yesterday. Going to keep an eye on that in case QQQ bulls are able to prove anything to us. Let's check in on Amazon's next support level. So broke the low of yesterday. I'm looking at daily EMA 12 as the next level, and that is in the mid 103s. We'll also keep an eye out to see if we get the first hourly oversold conditions, but not there quite yet. Hourly RSI just getting into the 30s. Tesla is a double bottom with the low of yesterday initially. Need a new high of the day for convincing hold. And healthcare in the financial sector not doing a whole lot. It's definitely QQQ is going to have a significant implication on depending on whether we break the low of yesterday or not. But Google and Apple up at their highs. So they're clearly standing out as lead bulls. NVDA's initial lead bull fading. Still holding the low of yesterday, but unable to break the high of yesterday on the initial push up. So remaining range bound for NVDA. QQQ trying to make its way to 315 resistance again. MARA high of the day test. Tesla did see a new high of the day, so that's a successful initial hold of support. And bulls want to see a 5-minute uptrend confirm here in the morning from here. If we're going to have conviction of that. So pretty solid bounce on Tesla. Got to form the 5-minute higher low next consolidation. As far as the hourly resistance from the end of yesterday, 163.22. And here's QQQ testing resistance. And so again, if we break, that's going to be a successful hold of the low of yesterday initially, and the next check mark that the bulls will need will be confirming a 5-minute uptrend, but that would be a good start for the bulls. The bears are very clearly defending that short-term resistance level. NVDA to hit lows. Let's check in on that. Low of yesterday's support. Still a ways away. 266.71. Tesla bulls are liking how it is holding up the last couple minutes while QQQ has another upper wick forming. So Apple, Google, Tesla positioned well if QQQ bulls are able to defend the low of yesterday and turn things around. Definitely a bit of a slower morning in terms of volume and volatility. And I'll be watching, if midday, if things really slow down, that'll tell us that the market's just waiting for these earnings reactions. And certainly that's been what the day-to-day volatility has implicated. Decent bounce on Microsoft after that. So Microsoft is trying to join Team Bull and get to the green. So first check mark for the QQQ bulls was hold the low of yesterday. Second mark is break the high of pre-market 315, which we've yet to do, still struggling just under that level. And then the third will be confirm a 5-minute uptrend later in the morning to continue giving confidence in that support. One thing that I do when I am checking volume is I look compared to yesterday's levels. So we now have 15 minutes of trading underway, so I can compare the first 15-minute volume on SPY to yesterday. And see it's fairly in line, not much difference. Another rejection for QQQ. Again, bears very clearly know the short-term importance of that 315 level. XLF approaching its low of the day as well. Bears would love to see both QQQ and XLF hit a new low together. Amazon continues to lead the way down for the bears, as does Netflix. Both hitting fresh lows. New low of the day on QQQ. So nice defense from the bears. We'll see if the bulls can continue to try and play defense as well. We're about 30 cents away from low of yesterday's support. We do have XLF hitting the low of the day as well. Far away from all major sectors hitting lows together. We'll see if XLV joins in. QQQ is at the low of yesterday, holding by a couple pennies initially. ARKK back to testing the low of yesterday. I'm not going to be in any rush to grab bear positions just because I do have an ARKK swing from yesterday. Bear swing. And same thing for the bears. If we break the low of yesterday, that's a great start for the QQQ bears, but we've got to confirm a 5-minute downtrend and follow through to keep that control through the morning. Crypto names are weakening with SPY down to the lows of yesterday. I should say weakening with QQQ. SPY did clearly break that low of yesterday. And SPY officially has weekly consolidation underway, only by a few pennies, but the weekly stair-step pattern has broken. SPY bears aren't going to go very far unless QQQ breaks the low of yesterday, which is a double bottom at the moment. Both bulls and bears playing defense on these short-term levels. Posting the ticker request thread for TheChartGuys members. And you can see the importance of what the sector is doing. You can have individual names like Apple and Google and Tesla make some nice moves on the morning, but if QQQ is going to head down, then obviously it's only a matter of time before that relative strength and they start dropping as well. Again, another check mark for the bears here would be an Apple new low of the day. That would be a big win if bears could pull that off. We're still 0.5% above that level. NUE. So NUE had pretty much a daily inside bar yesterday, and we saw a significantly lower open and broke the low of yesterday. So we're now looking down at 150.36 as a short-term support. But what bulls want to be cautious of is we saw a resistance break straight into a big pullback, and now a resistance break straight into a pullback on the daily chart. So that has us watching for the potential of a bear flag. So weekly uptrend technically confirmed with zero follow through means zoom out and be cautious of a potential monthly bear flag. And it wasn't even enough of a bounce for that to shape up on the monthly, but we can call it a potential 2-week bear flag. So just enough to be a bit cautious. We are still in a daily uptrend, but bulls definitely want to see more convincing follow through on these highs. I would say as long as 147.09 continues to hold, the daily uptrend remains intact. So that's the most important daily level for me. But again, you want to see bull breaks last multiple candles. If a bull break lasts one candle and then you get multiple consolidation candles, that's the definition of a break with no follow through. Baba has been a big time bear over the last week of trading, and it is fading back down towards the low of 79.48. We have to hold that level if a weekly higher low is going to form. If that level breaks, we're back in downtrends on all long-term time frames. So aggressive bulls are watching for a play off of 79.48 and hoping that we get as extended as possible to the downside as we head into that support level. The 4-hour RSI, I'm assuming, is oversold here. And the hourly RSI certainly beat up. So yeah, the 4-hour RSI is almost in the teens, while the hourly RSI is also beat up. And so I would be either as an aggressive bull looking to scale into weakness with a stop under 79, which is still a ways away, over 5%, or I would be waiting for the bulls to give me enough of a bounce for me to say that's either the low of this drop or I'm wrong and want to stop out, to give me a closer stop level nearby to have less risk on the trade. And the bears have absolute complete control and confidence. The hourly EMA 12 has been resistance the entire drop. That's another thing. You could say, all right, if we turn hourly EMA 12 resistance into support, I'll make an entry long and use the low at that point as my stop. That would be a way to wait for a level that's closer nearby to have less risk. TAP, looking for hourly oversold bounce to mark the daily higher low. So we're not close to hourly oversold. And it could eventually shape up, but we would need to see another couple red days for that to take shape. And so it's worth watching for after the size of this move up. Bearish reversal candle yesterday, gap down with zero follow through. So a patient bull is waiting for hourly oversold, but it's going to take a bit longer if we're going to see that. Pretty much need to break the low of today to confirm an hourly downtrend. And then we'll be heading towards hourly oversold if that were to happen. But for now, bulls are still keeping a good amount of control. Checking back in on the broader market, we've still got QQQ defending the low. It's a battle here at these short-term levels. And again, we aren't that far from all major sectors at the lows together, as XLV is at its low of the day. XLF is just a few pennies above it. So keeping an eye. AI fading back down towards the low of yesterday. Gave up a lot of that pre-market bounce. More ticker requests. HG futures of copper. So bears taking over here. The bear break of 392 was notable, and to follow through back down to 382 is exactly what bears want to see. And after 382, that would be the lowest level that we've seen in a number of months. And at that point, I'd probably be on the longer term time frames, looking for a tightening range. Let's check out the 2-month chart. So maybe a 2-month lower high is taking shape. And then we scout a 2-month higher low due to the 50% plus bounce retracement size. But very clearly, copper did not participate in the gold and silver bull narrative with the banking fiasco. Platinum did eventually, but now copper is rolling over into the weakness. So certainly relative weakness and a lot of space for a daily lower high to be the result of the next bounce. So just all about 382 here in the short term. So PLTR, notable drop the last couple of days, clear hourly downtrend. And you're watching for a 15-minute lower high eventually. So that would mean ideally seeing a 15-minute bounce, but failing to break the high of the day. And I like waiting. If you're looking short, I like waiting here just because the 15-minute RSI is pretty beat up there. We just got down almost into the teens. 812, I should say, is the most important shorter term resistance level for me. So if I'm looking bearish on a bounce, anything under 812 is worthwhile scouting that lower high. But if the bulls were able to break 812, that would be a bit of a red flag for me as a short-term bear. QQQ back to a low of the day test. We did have a decent bounce in MARA. Big flush down to fresh lows, but solid bounce. So it does look to me like some bear exhaustion in these crypto names, but I'm not going to be looking long in those names unless I have confidence that QQQ bulls are going to be going in that direction as well. ZIM. So ZIM is all bears dropping down. 15-minute RSI is in the teens. Hourly downtrend nice and clear. Just a daily waterfall drop after a stair-step move up. Just a complete 180 turnaround after an extremely strong move. And we are looking at a little gap to fill at 1775. And again, just sticking with the hourly downtrend. Have to shape up an hourly trend change for any kind of bounce, and then we will scout a daily lower high to be the result of that bounce. But certainly looks like bulls used up all their juice on that last push up. Things certainly accelerating to the downside the last few days. So we got that gap fill to be keeping an eye on, but I would be calling anything under 1881 as an hourly lower high next bounce. EXAS. Breaking the low of yesterday. So I would say we are back in an hourly downtrend. Looking down at 63.95 as support. Real tight here. So 63.95 and 63.37 key levels. Wow, that has just been a month of sideways. So again, whenever we have a sideways range, I want to find the extremes of that range and be keeping an eye on those names. And so 68.99 key resistance and 63.95 is the first key support. If we hold 63.95, we're just going to remain range bound and sideways with nothing going on. But hourly downtrend, our guide as we head towards that support level. MARA back to the high of the day, showing relative strength comparative to QQQ here. Definitely getting my attention. As QQQ continues to grind just above low of yesterday. 5-minute bounce now underway. Anything under the high of the day is just a 5-minute lower high. So we'll be interested in a 5-minute higher low in MARA. It definitely is continuing to look like bear exhaustion for me as the break of the low continues to lack any follow through. So here go QQQ bulls again, trying to get back to 315. So far, we've got successful defense of resistance and now successful defense of support. Apple remains the lead bull up at the high of the day. ALB. ALB daily inside bar did break bear, but only by 50 cents or so. Zooming into the hourly chart. So there's a lot of space for a daily lower high to be the result of the next bounce. We can bounce over 10% and still be in a daily downtrend. But the hourly chart is trying to continue to shift. Haven't confirmed an hourly uptrend yet, so essentially need to hold 172.30 and break 184.80 for that to be the first hourly uptrend. So I'd say if we don't break 184.80, the bears continue to keep their full short-term control. And again, even if we do break that resistance, we just zoom out and scout that lower high. So a big bounce from the low of Friday into the high of yesterday. And now an hourly higher low is trying to form compared to the low of Friday. Another upper wick on QQQ as the battle continues to rage on. Patiently waiting for clarity on QQQ. Checking in on Bitcoin as I continue to keep interest in these crypto names. Want to see if Bitcoin is showing us any kind of bullish shifts. Currently extremely tight on the hourly, so nothing really going on for Bitcoin. Non-event until it sees tightening ranges break. Really like how MARA is trading, but the last thing I want to do is look for a long entry over support. Still don't have enough confidence in QQQ bulls. Another test of the low of the day for QQQ here. So again, when I'm looking for relative strength and weakness on the morning, one of the easy ways to do it is I say, okay, QQQ is approaching the low of the day, and I look around and say who is not near its low of the day. So Apple not near, clearly relative strength. Even Tesla now not close to its low of the day. It's much closer to strength compared to QQQ since the bell ring. XLF trying to make it back to its high of the day. On QQQ. MARA resistance from yesterday is up at 909 for the hourly lower high. NVDA back to testing its low of the day with QQQ here. New low, so we have a clear 5-minute downtrend now on QQQ with that lower high and lower low. And we are breaking low of yesterday. Need follow through, of course. Going to be watching, again, the downtrending support line on the futures chart. But bears are winning the morning. We can say that much. Now what the bears want to see is other sectors joining in. QQQ new low of the day, but not seeing it on XLF or XLV. And again, trend lines are very subjective, and I can wiggle this trend line around a whole bunch and influence where it goes here, but this is one that I am watching. And we would have to see the bulls confirm a 5-minute uptrend if we were going to call this another bear break with zero follow through. But it's a clear 5-minute downtrend guide, which is nice for the morning. And the burden is on bulls to prove anything because so far on the morning, the bears have proven some control. Again, the next big win for the bears is a new Apple low of the day. That would be very notable if we see enough weakness for that to happen. I am going to be watching MARA for a 5-minute higher low, anything above the low of the day. But again, going to be real patient looking long as QQQ has this 5-minute downtrend. Tesla's still trying to hold on well. Tesla's got a nice tightening range here. Continues to remain positioned well for bulls comparatively. But that can only last so long if QQQ does stay weak. I'd like to see ARKK hit a new low of the day to continue following through with weakness. Tesla relative strength is definitely helping ARKK a small amount. Amazon remains a lead bear. Netflix still down to the lows. Meta approaching its lows. NVDA approaching the low of yesterday. Now the QQQ bears getting a little more followed through. XLF low of the day test. Bears liking the start to the day here. And again, this next support now on QQQ is going to be the lowest level we've seen in this sideways range. And that's coming into play. That is at 312.57, less than $1 away. Now we do have all major sectors at the low of the day together, which definitely stands out. Bears want to see that continue for the next 30 minutes, at least, as far as having that stick and be a consistent observation for the morning. But so far for the checklist for bears, they're getting most of them so far in this morning. The only one left for me is a new Apple low of the day. But we rejected from 315. We broke the low of yesterday. We confirmed a 5-minute downtrend. We do have other sectors, other major sectors showing weakness as well. Bears will be looking for 5-minute lower highs to be the result of the next bounce. Apple's low of the day is about 30 cents away, so coming into the picture. Still keeping an eye on that XLF 3272 as a very important bigger picture level for me over the next couple of days. A lot of these QQQ related names also have a lot of space for hourly lower highs to be the result of the next bounce. A pretty consistent pattern over the last couple of weeks has been, when we do see more weakness, we eventually find the low of the day late morning and then noon. Keep it to see if that is. Again, bears want to see a close near the low of the day. We haven't seen one of those in a while. Okay. You can see percentage-wise, they're roughly the same right now. Both are going to be looking for the 5-minute high or low. Have to confirm the 5-minute uptrend. Riot is clearly weaker in the sense that we saw the new high of the day straight into the low of the day test. And you compare that to MARA, and we're not close to the low of the day right now. It's the same 5-minute pullback, but much more space for the 5-minute high or low attempt. And MARA showed us relative strength yesterday as well compared to Riot. So whenever I see that, the correlation does shift back and forth between the two a good bit. But whenever I see that, that means I'm looking long on MARA, and if I'm looking short, I'm looking at Riot. Sometimes that changes intraday as well, but at least the last 24 hours, it's been MARA stronger. Tesla bulls still got it. They're up at the high, breaking that sideways range. Very nice. Ignoring QQQ weakness. Tesla has had relative weakness for days since earnings. What changed to turn it into relative strength? The double bottom at the low of yesterday. Key support and key resistance for an individual name is the #1 reason you will see a shift in correlation. And so Tesla now has a bull correlation on full display. We're still looking at that hourly resistance from end of yesterday at 163.22 as a key level, but going in the opposite direction of QQQ here. Wow, NIO is getting absolutely smashed. NIO falling to the lowest level in years. There was a base of support at $8. That is now gone. Big time weakness in NIO. CMPS, I was very interested in looking for a daily oversold bounce there, but it did not meet my volume criteria. And again, that's just a rule I have. I love this weekly equilibrium and definitely looking for a weekly higher low compared to 759. And I love the fact, you know, if I'm playing off of a support level, I want to get as beat up as possible. So I loved the fact that we were in a free fall for the last couple of days heading towards key support. And I went to look to see if I was going to trade it, and it's just nowhere near enough volume for me. You know, a couple of days ago, we had less than $1 million traded. High volume yesterday was about $3 million traded, and it's just not enough for me. But bulls held the low of yesterday, and they're now trying to get a little bit of a bounce going. Need to confirm an hourly uptrend to try and shape up a daily bounce. A lot of work to do. If we're going to set a weekly higher low, we need a big enough bounce to then create the space for a daily trend change. But at least a temporary bottom by holding that low of yesterday. So Netflix daily lower high set, bears in control at the low of the day. We got a 5-minute downtrend guide. The next support level is just under 320. If we break the 5-minute downtrend, we zoom out and scout a 15-minute lower high. So bears are definitely liking how the day has started for Netflix. And again, that's what I'm talking about, where bears want to keep control now all morning. And so an example for Netflix is, all right, we got a 5-minute downtrend. If we bounce, or when we bounce on the 15-minute from here, we then need to confirm the 15-minute downtrend. So bears need to keep control on these time frames, because the last thing they want to see is what has been the pattern, which is weakness in the morning and then a 3 to 4 hour bounce to end the day. So if you're a bear on Netflix, that's the next check mark. All right, next time we bounce, we know there's going to be a 15-minute bounce eventually today. Need to set the lower high and lower low for continued bear control all day. So we know QQQ will see a 5-minute bounce eventually. We'll be watching for a lower high and watching the retracement size of that bounce. Tesla bulls are going to hope to keep this relative strength and benefit from the next QQQ 5-minute bounce. So SPY weekly consolidation officially underway. We're going to be watching weekly EMA 12. NVDA is at, and I believe just breaking the low of yesterday. Breaking it by 20 cents. Next key support for NVDA is 262.20. It's a key longer term level. With the earnings reactions tonight, just keep in mind if both go bull, Microsoft and Google, if they both go bull, it'll be a notable bullish reaction. If they both go bear, it'll be notable bearish. And if they go different directions, then it won't be a significant reaction either way. So we're keeping an eye on that. Amazon remaining the lead bear, down 2%. I'm looking around at peers and other names. We've got, Netflix down 1.5, Meta down 1.6, but Amazon's down twice as much as Microsoft, 4 times as much as Google, just in terms of percentage. So it was a notable shift from relative strength the last few days, and then a little climax yesterday morning, and now relative weakness since then. Apple is testing its low of the day. That's another one of the check marks that the bears want to see. Apple breaking 165 because that's our team bull captain, would then be rolling over to join team bear. Gonna have to pick an ARK target. ARK has very little support until that 34.81 level. Once we break 36, once we broke 36.96, very little support here. So I know earnings are going to be a factor. May take a little bit of profit before earnings after hours. But ideally, would like to let this play out into the mid 35s. Question, is SPY considered a daily downtrend now? You can definitely say so, in my opinion, because we set the daily high or low yesterday when the inside bar, I guess it wasn't exactly an inside bar, but when we broke the high of Friday, your daily high or low is set. And so the fact that not only do we have that little lower high and lower low, but also the fact that the weekly stair step has now broken bear, I would say yes, we have confirmed a little daily downtrend into weekly consolidation. And yeah, same for QQQ. And that's why yesterday was so notable for me as far as, why I started shifting more aggressively as a bear as far as, grabbing bearish IRA positions and looking to enter that ARKK swing short. The reason was you set that daily high or low and then you turn straight into rolling over. That's a notable red flag, a notable shift. Because if we were going to be bullish, we would set that daily high or low and then keep grinding back up to resistance. So it's essentially the opposite of what the bulls wanted to see happen. And so again, it's just a nice win for the bears. UPS. So bearish earnings reaction, big time drop. 178.21 is a support level. And after that, I'd be looking at 177.75 and then 176.09, a couple little levels there. But absolute full bear control as long as it's a 5-minute downtrend. Short-term lower high, 179.54 resistance now. And if we confirm a 5-minute uptrend, we zoom out and scout an hourly lower high. So bears have control on every time frame. RSI is out the window because it's it's a earnings reaction. So RSI is much less useful. Monthly lower high set. So you just grind it up for 5 months. lower high, lower low, lower high, and bulls would have to shape up a monthly inverse head and shoulders to change things here, but we are, well, I guess 4 more pennies until monthly consolidation is officially underway. QQQ 5-minute bounce attempt. Again, lots of space for a lower high, but MARA shaping up that 5-minute higher low. Nice 5-minute tightening range on MARA. Bulls continue to be positioned well if QQQ were able to change any kind of momentum. Apple did defend its at double bottom. You can see MARA continues to keep notable strength comparative to Riot. Riot hit the new low. Very different looking charts on the morning now. So again, when you have that relative strength in your favor, it's just so much more forgiving as a trader. And you've got to be on your A game for entries and exits. Whereas if you're trading with it, you can be, you know, a little bit. Obviously, we're not trying to be sloppy. You can make a sloppy entry and still get, you know, a win out of it. So looking bearish, if I'm looking bearish in crypto, it's Riot. And if I'm looking bullish, it's MARA. As long as this relationship continues, and again, it can change on any given day, which is why it requires constant observation. And as an indicator, same reason I don't use Ichi Clouds or I don't use Elliott Wave or any other style of trading. I've just found something that works for me. And when you find something that works for you, you're not constantly seeking to try everything else out. If it stops working, absolutely start looking for other things. But once you develop your style and it is successful, you focus in on that style and, you know, you make little tweaks here and there, but you've got the core of your foundation of your trading style. And Lori will likely talk a good bit about this on Thursday's webinar as far as finding your edge in the markets. But once you find your edge, you're not constantly searching for a new edge or a different edge. You're sticking with what works. Post that link again one more time in the comments. Active Trader Pro that you're looking at, which is my broker. Do the prices and patterns of TQQQ affect QQQ's price and chart? Other way around. TQQQ is going to be trading based off what QQQ is doing. You can also look at dollar volume to determine, you know, something's importance. If I'm looking for a sector leader in something that's an undeveloped sector like crypto miners, the name that has the most dollar volume is going to be the leader to be watching. Thanks for the heads up on the mic. I'll play with it after the live stream concludes here in just a minute. So quick summary here, we're just going to be watching, number one, does Apple break the low of the day or not? 5-minute downtrend guide on QQQ. And just full bear control now. And again, bears want to see a 15-minute lower high and lower low as the result of the next bounce. They want to close near the low of the day. And they want to just keep as much control as possible. We haven't seen a full day in a while. And QQQ is approaching this key daily support level as far as the lowest level we've seen in the last 3 weeks or so. So that's coming into play now as well. I appreciate you all tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Don't forget to check out Lori's webinar on Thursday. And I will see you all in the end of the day market wrap up, where we on how the next 5 trading hours goes. I'll be back in the chat room shortly to continue coverage there.